difficult on their side of the house. Think about the girls in rural area, ladies and gentlemen, was able to recognize that women can be CEO or doctor and shining within society, and that reality seems to be beautiful for her. But with a communal value, which is something oppressive to the individual, confines that particular woman to be living in a rural area, which makes individual life harder and misery, which cause an individual dissatisfaction of their life, in which those kind of circumstances is something unique in modern society, because as I told you, in modern society, equipped with openness of information as well as a society, allows people to have a contact as well as in facing with the new values, but individual cannot pursue that kind of goal. And we think that's damaging. With that, I would like to proud to oppose the motion.
I thank the Leader of Opposition for his remarks, and I call upon the Member of Government, Mr. Fumiko Hirasawa, to continue to deliver the government's case within 7 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, in this House today. Mr. Speaker, we don't think that individuals can live on their own. We think that individuals living in this country can live happily because we have a national insurance system, or because your family supports you financially. Mr. Speaker, we think that it is possible for individuals to live alone. And when it comes to that, we define this community value as something, this commonality as something, because you have something in common with your friend, you have your incentive to devote yourself without any payback. That is the reason why a lot of religious institutions, like churches, for example, do donations to the poor people, even if there isn't like a material payback to yourself, because you think that this person comes from your same religious background. And that is the reason why we think that it is extremely important, especially in a modern society when we don't know what is going to happen in the future. We think in order for individuals to have a more meaningful life, we think that this kind of safety net is crucially necessary, and that's the very reason why we would like to propose this motion. So they said, one clarification before moving on to the substantive material, they said we are just supporting the non-existence of community values. No, Mr. Speaker, we think this is a comparative debate, because comparatively under our paradigm, there's less community, there's more community value. Their paradigm they have to support is a paradigm in which there's more community, less community value. In that sense, we think our argument is all reasonable. So I have two substantive material to talk about. First, like which paradigm is better off for the meaningful life of the individual, and secondly, why, for the sake of the society as a whole, our paradigm is much better. All the rebuttals included in my substantive. So the main contention coming from the government, the opposition bench, was about how some individuals really don't want to opt in or be with this commonality or community value, but they're forced to because they have a severe pressure, and therefore they cannot cater for diverse values. First, we think that sort of pressure is necessary to provide them a better life. Why? Because we think any sort of capable individual has the possibility to fail if you live alone. For example, if you are very successful, like an investment banker, you have the possibility to go bankruptcy just because of the failure in your, for example, job and etc. So at short term, these people might think that I want to get out of this community, regional community or family value, so that I can pursue my own freedom. We think in the long term, it is more beneficial for this person to have a stable family, or for example, a regional community in which they can go back to, or like a mentor they can talk to, because we think there's always a possibility of an individual to make some sort of mistakes. And in that sense, we think this sense of commonality is important, because I told you in the introduction that this sense of commonality is the stuff that enables you to devote something without any material feedback. Even if that's the reason why some religious NGOs have incentive to help these poor people without any payback. And that's why, because every person has the possibility to become poor or being emotionally damaged, go into depression, that is the reason why we think this safety net is necessary, and that choice of opting out of this social norm or community is something not beneficial for the individual. But even if we accept their contention that there are a number of people who really want to opt out of this community value, we think it is still possible under our paradigm. Because we're not saying that this community value is not a legally bound thing, which means that if they really want to opt out of this, for example, religion, or if you really want to opt out of this region, or if you want to opt out of your family, it's still possible. And for these characters, we think our paradigm is much better, because based upon good consideration, these people can opt out of, because they have this choice of social norm or community to cater for, and they compared with the other form of going out into the society, they chose it. So they're going to be satisfied with your own choice of going out of it. But under their paradigm, in which there are many communities, most people in the society will live without less communities to cater for. Many of people in Japan currently don't really cater for religion, which means that in born, you don't have this choice to live with that community value. We think under their paradigm, there are less choices, fewer choices provided for these individuals. Therefore, we think these stuff are necessary. And they argue that, okay, the state exists for the safety net of the individual so that they can maximize their own freedom through economic means, or etc. But we think the state or all this social insurance system itself is based upon this commonality or community value itself. Because you have nationalism, you have the incentive to go for voting and discuss in politics that what kind of economic policies is better or what kind of physical policy is better. The reason why in Japan, currently the voting rate is so low compared to the past, this is because the people don't have the strong the nationalism or your strong community value or the patriotism towards your own country. I chose to work in the government, not for the money, because I wanted to work for this country, because I had this patriotism to cater for. That is the reason why I opted into this government, so that I can contribute. But the number of people like me is actually decreasing, because they're
If individuals sincerely think that minimal protection for us is important, then social welfare is going to be preserved even on our paradigm. What's the comparative?
We think that not enough social welfare is going to be there. And also we think that we told you how having more people included in democracy is better. It's because there are better, more diverse ideas involved so that we can choose the better economic policies. No, thank you. And what we said that organic change is what Prime Minister mentioned, but we don't mean that organic change is occurring because of the individualism. We're saying that the community value itself is forming in a way that it respects for example, individual fundamental rights, rights to say what you want to. But we think this community bonds still exists under our paradigm. So, for example, religious churches accepted a lot of gay marriages in, for example, United States. It's not that it is there's a decline in community value. It is that this community value, the contents of the community value itself is changing. It is not the decline of community value, and this is the system that we want to support. So moving on to why this is beneficial for the society as a whole. Madam Speaker, there are a lot of stuff that we cannot solve just by their own. If people move just for the monetary benefit or for your own individual benefit, problems like environmental problems or recovery from natural disasters never happen. So who are the actors who helped out the poor people who are suffering in the United States after the Hurricane Carolina? It were the Christian NGOs who had a strong incentive to help out the poor Christian people so that these people can actually live happily better. The reason why a lot of people went to Tohoku after the natural disaster in Tohoku is because these people wanted to help out this person because you are a same Japanese person and you feel more commonality or sense of, for example, sympathy to these people. And this sense of sympathy is what is lacking in the status quo. Just like my partner said, there are a lot of, for example, lonely elderly people dying in a rural area of Japan because the people living there don't really care about your own neighbor. Then that is the problem we want to solve in this debate. And from all these reasons, for the individual happiness and for the societal welfare, our paradigm is better. Thank you.
I thank the member of government for her remarks, and I call on the member of opposition, Mr. Tatsuya Uchiyama, to deliver the second opposition speech in 7 minutes here. Yeah.
Again, Mr. Speaker, this debate is not about we are talking about non-existence of common value. We are talking about decline of the common value. Which means in our side of the house, if people try to get marriage, the people coming from another district, they can do so. If they go to church would accept you. Because we are not talking about the absence of the common sense. We are talking about decline of common sense. In our side of the house, people can choose what kind of values which you can protect it. This is an exclusive benefit coming from our side. In their side of the house, at the end of the day, this common value decided by lottery because you were born in Japan, because you accidentally face this revision, you have to follow that. In their side of the house, individual cannot their liberty. In our side of the house, as long as we are talking about decline, the people this kind of community has room to accept you if we want to join it. So having said that, I want to deal with the one issue in my speech. Entire government side say that it's important, it's problematic, became difficult to find the important value. So that's why we have to support this motion. No, thank you. We say even if it's difficult for individual to find your value, even under that circumstance, as long as you can choose the values which you can protect, it's more beneficial to you. I want to prove this point in my first point. But before that, I have a many response to previous speaker. First and foremost, previous speaker say, so state's welfare is actually reflect the common value. So that's why in our side of the house, we have to protect decline of this welfare system, the public national health insurance system. But we don't think so. This kind of value never decline, as Fujita pointed out, because every people agree with that. Basic, no thank you. As basic welfare is a fundamental foundation to live in society. As long as vast majority of people support that, this is completely out of debate first and foremost. Secondly, the previous speaker said, in terms of gay marriage, in terms of this kind of value is also this common value is also the changing. But we don't think so. Because this value is not changing, it's actually extension of liberty. Because this community actually accepting more freedom. That's why the community start to accept the gay marriage the first and foremost. Again, Mr. Speaker, we are not talking about this kind of value. The society, for example, in the United States, many people start to accept this gay marriage as a value. Under that circumstance, this value doesn't decline. We are not talking about this issue, first and foremost. Secondly, the previous speaker had said, so even in our paradigms, if people don't like your community value, so you can opt out there. It's fundamentally not the case. Because entire government side say there's a pressure to actually follow this community value, that's why you can get benefit. If that was true, why people can opt out from this common value, the easy way? More importantly, in this community, this kind of brainwash happen. If you are born son or farmer, you have to follow your father, because your father's father is also the farmer. These kind of things, that's why you have to follow that. Within this community, these kind of value are cherished by every person. Then we can see the pressure. It's fundamentally difficult to opt out. Yes.
Don't you think such a farmer can have a high possibility to fail when he went to the city without any protection, and there's no protection even after he failed?
So this is a nice point to my nice point, because we are talking about modern society. If we are talking about some old society, the states cannot provide basic welfare. For example, unemployment insurance, the job training, and so forth. In our side, also, we are talking about common value. If we are talking about some kind of people start to create the company, probably we have some crowdfunding. This kind of the various way that exist to protect yourself. In our side of the house, because we are talking about modern society, this farmer has a more possibility to succeed that. Even if we are talking about some old society, it's difficult to sustain their life without support coming from community. But we are talking about modern society. As long as we are talking about modern society, the individual has capability to protect themselves and choose what they want to do. That's a response to this POI. Thirdly, the previous speaker, I'm sorry. So, fourthly, the previous speaker said,